You know that feeling. You've spent like half your morning in an outpatient department, an OPD, and you walk out just wondering, were you really heard?
Mm.
Or maybe you just sort of brushed off a concern you had about your care. It happens a lot, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, think about the sheer volume of people going through OPDs every single day.
Yeah.
It unfortunately creates situations where, well, individual needs might not always get the attention they really deserve.
Well, today on the deep dive, we're actually going to tackle this head on. We've looked through information from some key players,
Right.
including the big one, Joint Commission International, JCI, and India's own NABH, that's the National Accreditation Board for Hospitals and Healthcare Providers.
And some practical stuff, too.
Yeah, exactly. Really practical insights from Supreme Medic Consultancy, HospiMatch, and even some down-to-earth articles and podcast chats focusing specifically on OPD.
On how to raise those concerns.
Yes, how to actually do it when you're there.
Okay, so our goal today is pretty straightforward, really. We want to equip you with a clear idea of when, and maybe more importantly, how you can effectively voice any worries you might have in that OPD setting.
Right, so you feel more confident.
Exactly. Confident that you're getting the best possible care, but also understanding maybe some of the background stuff, the challenges the systems themselves face.
Okay, so let's start with that framework. Healthcare quality. You hear about hospitals being accredited.
JCI and NABH.
Exactly. JCI, as our sources point out, it's a huge international player, really focused on improving healthcare quality, patient safety, all over the world.
Their mission statement is actually quite clear. Enable and affirm the highest standards of healthcare quality and patient safety for all.
And they're everywhere, aren't they?
They really are. Active in over 70 countries, accredited more than 1,000 programs. That global reach says a lot about wanting high standards everywhere.
It does.
But it's worth remembering, accreditation aims high, but the actual impact, that can vary. It depends how well the standards are implemented and checked locally.
Good point. So patients still need to be vigilant.
Absolutely. Even in accredited places, you still need to be aware.
And it's not just like a certificate hanging on the wall, is it? We found examples. Hong Kong Adventist Hospitals, Burjeel Farha, Emirates Specialty, Corniche, they all talk about real benefits.
Tangible thing.
Yeah, like better teamwork for the staff, more community trust, better ways of managing risks, and just a stronger focus overall on keeping patients safe. It feels deeper than just paperwork.
And ideally for you as a patient, those operational improvements should mean a smoother, safer experience.
Right. Less chance of problems cropping up in the first place.
Exactly, creating that kind of environment.
Okay, let's bring it closer to home now with NABH, the National Accreditation Board for Hospitals and Healthcare Providers.
Part of the Quality Council of India.
Right, and they're focused specifically on setting those standards for healthcare places across India. Hospitals, clinics, you name it.
And you've got organizations like Supreme Medic Consultancy.
Yeah.
They actually help hospitals get through that NABH process, assist with the accreditation details, improving their quality systems overall.
So what does all this accreditation stuff mean for you sitting in that OPD waiting room?
Well, I think the fact that JCI and NABH exist means there are recognized standards for good care.
Okay, benchmarks.
Yeah, benchmarks. Understanding that can empower you, give you clearer expectations, and it reinforces your right to speak up if things don't seem right.
It's not about making trouble.
Not at all. It's about being informed, advocating for yourself.
Which brings us right to the next question. When? When should you feel like, okay, this concern needs to go higher up?
Right. Beyond just the person you're talking to right then, our sources, like that Lifelines by Supreme Medic podcast and the article on escalating OPD concerns, they give some very specific scenarios.
Okay, like what? The first one that jumped out at me was delays. Unreasonable delays, excessive waiting times.
Yeah, we all know OPDs get busy, but
if you're waiting way longer than seems normal, and crucially, no one's telling you why, no updates.
That's a key sign, according to the podcast. Makes you wonder about the system, doesn't it?
It does. Is it just me, or is the system struggling?
Exactly. And often it's that lack of transparency that's really frustrating. Even just acknowledging the delay helps.
True. A quick explanation can make a difference.
It's when you feel forgotten that, escalating seems more justified.
Okay, what else? Communication breakdown. That's another big one.
Definitely. If you're not getting the info you need about your consultation or test results or what happens next.
Even after asking, maybe multiple times?
Yes. The sources say that's a time to push harder for clarity. It's your health. You need to be kept in the loop.
Absolutely. It underlines that, right? You have to be informed, involved.
Yeah, getting vague answers or just nothing, that undermines everything.
Then there's how you're treated, the respect factor.
Oh, absolutely crucial. The podcast really hammers this home. Every patient deserves respect, dignity.
So if you feel dismissed
Mm-hmm.
or spoken to unprofessionally.
Or just ignored, your concerns brushed aside with no real explanation, that's a legitimate reason to take it further.
Yeah. It can be hard to speak up in that situation, though, that power imbalance.
It can be, but feeling valued, respected, that's fundamental to quality care.
And then, of course, the big one, the quality of the actual medical care.
Right. Doubts about the diagnosis or the treatment.
Or maybe feeling like necessary tests just weren't done.
The podcast stresses, if you genuinely worry your health is at risk because of the care or lack of it.
You need to push for a review.
Yes. Trust your gut on this one sometimes. You know your body.
If something feels off or you have serious doubts, advocating for another look is vital.
Absolutely essential.
Okay, and finally, the sources also mention billing issues.
Ah, yes, the charges. Discrepancies, maybe overcharging.
Or just incorrect billing for things you didn't receive.
Yeah.
It's important to query those and escalate if they don't get fixed.
And that article adds a few more really critical red flags, too.
Like what?
Things like getting wrong test results or missing results altogether.
Wow, okay. Serious stuff.
Or getting treatment advice that seems, well, unsafe or just plain wrong. These are situations needing immediate attention.
Definitely. Those highlight errors with potentially huge impacts on your health. Escalation there is absolutely vital and fast.
No question.
Okay, so let's say you've recognized one of these situations. You feel you need to escalate. What do you actually do?
Right, the practical steps. Again, the Lifelines podcast and that guide on escalating concerns offer some solid advice.
First step, and this can be the hardest when you're upset.
Stay calm. Try to be respectful.
Easier said than done sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. But keeping your composure, even while being firm, really helps have a productive conversation. Keeps the focus on the issue, not the emotion.
Good point. Okay,
Yeah.
next, gather information.
Yes. Smart move. Note down dates, times, who you spoke to.
Staff names, if you can get them.
Definitely. And jot down all the specific details of the problem, like building your case.
Having that clear record helps so much when you explain it later, doesn't it?
Hugely helpful. Takes away the ambiguity, gives a clear timeline to whoever needs to look into it.
Okay, so you got your info, you're staying calm.
Yeah.
Where do you start?
The advice is to start with the immediate staff. The nurse, receptionist, whoever you're dealing with right there.
Just politely explain the issue. Ask if they can fix it.
Exactly. And if they can't, or it's sort of above their pay grade, then ask to speak to the OPD supervisor or the charge nurse.
So try the local level first.
Yeah. Gives them a chance for a quick fix. Often a supervisor can sort things out right then and there.
Okay, but what if the concern is specifically about the medical advice, the doctor's recommendation?
Then the logical next step is asking to meet with that doctor or specialist again, directly.
To discuss your concerns with them.
Precisely. Direct chat is key for medical issues. Ask your detailed questions. Make sure you both understand the plan. Shared understanding.
Right. But if you've done that, spoken to the supervisor, maybe the doctor, and it's still not resolved,
Then it's probably time for a formal complaint. The sources mention contacting the hospital's patient grievance department or patient feedback.
and put it in writing.
Yes, definitely put it in writing. That creates an official record.
And that formal complaint triggers a more structured process inside the hospital.
It should. They should investigate, track it, work towards resolving it. It ensures it doesn't just get lost.
And follow up. The sources stress keeping records of everything in writing.
Absolutely. Copies of your complaint, any letters or emails back from the hospital.
And if nothing happens, or you're still not satisfied,
Then you escalate again, up to senior hospital management, maybe even the medical superintendent.
the Lifelines excerpt also mentioned online platforms or patient advocacy services.
Yeah, if those exist in your area, they can be another avenue. They might offer independent support or different ways to raise the issue.
Get another perspective, maybe.
Exactly. Or just amplify your voice within the system.
Now, it's important, isn't it, to remember these problems don't just happen out of nowhere.
Right. There are often bigger systemic things going on.
That article, Escalating Concerns in Outpatient Departments, really dives into some of those underlying challenges that OPDs face.
Understanding those can give you a bit more context, maybe.
It talks about just the sheer increase in demand for OPD services.
Yeah, several reasons for that. Aging population.
More chronic diseases needing ongoing care.
And medical advances mean more treatments and follow-ups are possible and needed.
And all those extra patients put a massive strain on resources, don't they?
A huge strain leads to bottlenecks, longer waits,
Which ties right into the next challenge. Limited resources. Funding issues.
staff shortages, maybe not enough equipment, infrastructure problems. OPDs often work under tight budgets.
And that directly impacts care, right? Less time per patient.
It can, yeah. Affects how much time staff can spend, contributes to waits, impacts overall efficiency.
And insufficient processes don't help either, like old-fashioned booking system.
Or just no clarity on how the queue works. That lack of transparency is super frustrating.
Leads to feeling lost in the system.
Definitely. Modernizing those processes with tech is so important. Better flow, less admin burden, better experience for you.
Because all these things, the demand, the resource limits, the clunky processes, they hammer the patient experience.
Long waits, poor communication, feeling like things aren't followed through.
And the article points out that can even impact the actual quality of care. Access issues, potential for mistakes when staff are overloaded.
It's a tough cycle. Patients feel unheard. Escalation becomes necessary, even though it's not ideal for anyone.
The article also mentioned things like trouble adopting new tech, staffing challenges leading to burnout.
Yeah, recruitment, retention, and even just the financial sustainability of running an OPD, it all plays a part.
Okay, so given all those challenges, what can actually be done? What are the solutions?
Well, the same article offers some hope, ideas for improvement.
Like streamlining things,
Right.
using electronic health records,
Yes. EHRs for better communication, fewer errors. Online booking systems, too. More transparent queue management. HospiMatch highlights that as a key trend, too.
making the flow smoother.
Exactly. These tech solutions can really boost efficiency, improve communication, make the whole OPD visit less stressful.
And of course, investing in resources.
Mhm.
That seems fundamental.
Absolutely. More staff, better funding, updated facilities, it's essential.
And then there's improving patient engagement. How does that work?
Things like giving regular updates on wait times, having clear ways to communicate.
Dedicated channels?
Yeah, and developing more personalized care plans. HospiMatch mentions that trend too, making care feel less like an assembly line.
Building trust through communication.
Right. Proactive, transparent communication can prevent a lot of issues from escalating in the first place.
Makes sense. What else? Staff training?
Crucial. Ongoing training so staff have the skills to handle interactions well, address concerns quickly.
And using data.
Yeah, analyzing data, tracking key performance indicators, using that info to constantly see where improvements can be made.
And community partnerships to help with access, maybe?
That's mentioned too. It really takes a multi-pronged approach, tackling operations and the bigger systemic stuff.
Okay. So through all this talk of escalating concerns, we should probably just clearly state some of your fundamental rights as a patient.
Absolutely. The Lifelines article lays these out well. First off, you have the right to get clear, understandable information.
About your condition, treatment options.
And the right to be treated respectfully, courteously, by everyone.
That includes getting answers you understand, right? Not just medical jargon.
Definitely. In a language you understand, without being rushed. Treated with dignity.
And privacy. That's a big one.
Huge. The right to have your privacy and confidentiality protected. Your health info should be handled discreetly, shared only as needed for your care.
Builds trust.
Essential for trust.
And you have the right to ask questions. Lots of them, if needed.
Yes. And get clear, understandable answers. Don't ever hesitate to ask for clarification. That's what the team is there for.
It's about informed consent, shared decisions.
Exactly. Understanding risks, benefits, before you agree to anything.
And finally, crucially, the right to complain. To voice concerns.
Without being afraid of any backlash or it affecting your care negatively.
Hospitals should have clear ways for you to give feedback or make a grievance.
And they have a responsibility to take it seriously, investigate fairly, and use that feedback to get better, without penalizing you for speaking up.
Right. So, as we wrap up this deep dive on navigating OPD concerns, we really hope you feel, well, more empowered.
Remember, advocating for your health, it's not just allowed, it's often necessary to get the best care.
Yeah. Understanding when and how to escalate effectively, it's a key skill in navigating today's healthcare system.
And making sure your rights as a patient are respected.
Definitely. And maybe here's something to think about after this. Consider this. How might your willingness to voice a concern, even when it feels awkward or difficult, how might that not only help your immediate situation, but also contribute, in a small way perhaps, to a broader culture, a culture of improvement, accountability within healthcare, ultimately making things better, safer for everyone in the community down the line?
That's a powerful thought to end on, something definitely worth reflecting on.